There we go. So hello everyone. Welcome to the second installment of our Career Insights series for the spring semester. Career Insights, Careers in Education. My name is Jihan Ju. I'm one of the advisors here at Beyond Barnard. We'll be hearing from four Barnard alums today. Thank you so much to our panelists for making the time to join us. I'm going to drop the bios of our alums in the chat in just a second. For our students in the room, and I'm sure more of our students are going to be joining us shortly, there will be an audience Q&A toward the end of our program. So if you're interested in asking a question to our panelists, feel free to unmute yourself when the time comes. If you're feeling shy, you could also write your questions in the chat, and I'll be reading them out loud. So we'll start off with introductions. So for our panelists, please introduce yourself. What is your current role, and what sparked your initial interest in the work that you're doing now? This is a casual conversation, so you can feel free to jump in as you see fit.
I can go. So, hi, I'm Lola Ogunyemi. I'm currently a professor and chair of the Department of Preventive and Social Medicine at Charles Ardor University of Medicine and Science, which is in Los Angeles. And I got interested, I'm a computer scientist by training and a biomedical informatics researcher. And I kind of got interested. I was born in Nigeria, moved to the US when I was 16, and took in the 11th grade, took a coding class in Pascal, which is a language I'm sure most people have never heard of. But it really got me interested in computer programming. And so at Barnard, I decided to major in computer science. And I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed a lot of things, but I enjoyed that. And I decided I wanted to go to graduate school. But at the time, I was also interested in literature and storytelling. So I thought, I'm going to go to graduate school and bring, my two interests together. I'm going to, learn 3D graphics and animation because I love 3D animation. And I probably will end up working at Disney or Pixar. So this was my life plan. That's what I thought I was going to do. And then I got to graduate school, and in the computer science department at UPenn, where I was, they had this seminar series that was really fascinating. And it was a trauma surgeon and a radiologist. And I'm like, what are they doing in a computer science department? So I got really curious, went to the seminars, and found out about my current field, biomedical informatics, that you could use computing to make patients' lives better, physicians, nurses, that computing could help to improve healthcare. And I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. And essentially, I've been working at hospitals or medical schools my entire career since then.
I can go next and introduce myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Arinma. I'm a current fellow in education at the Museum of Modern Art here in New York. I'm quite new to my position. It's been a few months, but I'm in the Learning and Engagement Department of the museum and mainly work with teenagers on public programs, both after school, weekends, and things are getting ready to ramp up for the summertime. I found my current role through some teen programs that I did at other arts organizations before coming to MoMA. I was working at an art gallery in Chelsea that had a teen program called Teen Curators, where they researched the art objects that were on view and wrote their essays and had their own analysis, public speaking opportunities. So I was really assisting with that program, and that's how I got started in education. And at the same time, I started a nonprofit arts education initiative with a friend of mine. It's called Eye Level, and it was mainly working with photography. So we had teenagers, we'd give them film cameras one week, and each week they would turn in a roll of film and had a mentor in photography that was walking them through some important steps to keep in mind. And at the end of the 3 weeks of workshopping, we had an exhibition where students got to show their work to family, friends, members of the community. So I think those two combined experiences really got me on the track for arts education in particular, which has been really exciting for me. But I'm a recent graduate of Barnard. I finished in 2024. So I think also education just being fresh on my mind and having a student perspective and not being too far off from the age group that I work with has also been very helpful for me.
I can go next. Hi, my name is Yurina Yoshikawa, and I currently serve as Director of Education at a literary nonprofit called The Porch, which is based in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I currently live. And The Porch is a place where anyone, regardless of their experience, background, um, can take a writing class in any genre, whether it's poetry, fiction, nonfiction, playwriting. And we offer classes in person here in Nashville, but also online ever since 2020. And so my job is to manage, we do over 150 classes a year. We rotate through seasons, and I work with many instructors based here or elsewhere, and it's been such a joy. I also am a writer myself. I do fiction and nonfiction writing, and I have an MFA, a Master of Fine Arts in writing from Columbia. And I've been working on my own craft, but it's also been really you know, it's felt really symbiotic that the work that I do day to day, helping to connect teachers and students for their own creative writing endeavors, it really feeds into my own practice. And when I think back to what might have sparked it, I was actually a writing fellow when I was at Barnard. And a writing fellow, you might have used one or you might have been one yourself, but it was a little office. Back then, it was like in some basement. And you go, you make an appointment for maybe 30 or 40 minutes to, go over your essay with a fellow Barnard student who was trained to be able to talk to you about it and to offer advice. And I really loved doing that. And I think even that really carried over, to what I'm doing today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bethany Schaid, and I am currently a program director for Health Information Project, or HIP. It's a nonprofit that is a peer-to-peer health education program for high schools, and it started in Miami in 2009. And this year, I have had the privilege and the honor of launching the program here in New York City and in New Jersey. And so I support all of our schools who are enrolled. I help onboard the teachers who are supervising the program. And we train 11th and 12th graders to teach health education to ninth graders. And that's because we know that kids prefer learning about health from peers. And when they are struggling, especially with mental health issues, they often reach out to peers instead of adults. So it's really exciting to bring just this really relevant and innovative program into schools. I am a former teacher. I taught here in the city for 7 years. I also taught ESL at the Brooklyn Public Library recently. And then I was a program manager at the New York City Department of Education. So this role just kind of brought together my teaching experience, my program management experience. But it was really important to me at this stage in my career that I was doing something that was directly impacting schools, that was going to give something that makes the lives of students and teachers better, easier. And so again, really, really excited to have found this current role and to be working directly with our schools and getting that energy from the students who are taking on this really, really awesome and intense leadership role.
Beautiful. Thank you all. It's so wonderful to hear sort of the variety of roles that we're seeing across this panel, the variety of like industries as well. And also just hearing about the specific journeys that have led you to the roles that you're in now. Very, very helpful, especially for our students who are both in the room and who are going to be listening to this recording later. Moving into my second question, thinking on your career trajectory thus far, and this can include your undergraduate career as well, what opportunities did you find to be most valuable for you in getting involved in your current field? And also, I'm adding on to that question, sort of thinking on the importance of networking and connecting with people in any field or industry. How did you work to build your community? And anyone can jump in.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in first about this. I would say some points throughout undergrad and then through internships as well that have been really helpful. In terms of education, I started off, was an urban studies major, but had interest in education while I was at Barnard and took a class called Science in the City or STEAM in the City, where one of your assignments is actually teaching assistant placement in a New York City school. Because of the timing, I was virtual, but it was one of my first experiences working with teens. And so that was something that I think just got me thinking about this as a possible path. But as I moved on throughout undergrad, I think my interests shifted more to fine art and like research in that way. So museum and gallery internships, I think were really like pivotal for me, particularly at the Studio Museum in Harlem, which has a great college internship program that I would definitely recommend, and with a lot of different pathways, including education. But I think in terms of networking, it was keeping in touch with everybody that I worked with from where I was placed as a teacher assistant with the Double Discovery Center to like internships, and not only networking above with like supervisors and keeping in touch with them, but keeping in touch with the fellow interns and people you come in with have also been really helpful because sometimes they're able to recommend future programs or give you advice on what they're doing, even if they're only 6 months or a year ahead of where you find yourself, has been really, really helpful. And then Beyond Barnard always recommended for me to do the cold LinkedIn email chats, which actually did help 9 times out of 10. And just reaching out to other Barnard alum, searching companies that you're interested in or fields that you're interested in for Barnard alum and reaching out to them also was really helpful in building my network.
Yeah, I'll say I've not always been as strategic as I want to be in this area. I was a history major at Barnard, and I spent 3 of my years at Barnard saying I was never going to teach. And by the fourth year, I realized that a lot of the opportunities that I taken at Barnard in terms of volunteering. I was volunteering with a conflict resolution group that went into elementary schools in the area. I had a job tutoring for test prep on Saturdays. And even when I was an intern at the State Department, I was placed in the education wing and I was teaching children of foreign service officers. So I had to look holistically at what I was doing and how it was all about teaching and learning. And, then just another huge piece was how impacted I was by my own teachers, both in high school and at Barnard. And so I've really, carried their influence and a lot of their direct advice with me. And as I've gone along in my career, it's been a combination of jumping at opportunities when I see them. When I heard of a colleague who was a teacher like me, and after teaching for a few years, went to do a Fulbright and taught abroad. I didn't know you could do that after you had left undergrad, and so for so many years. So with his example and his support and Barnard's support, I was able to do a Fulbright teaching assistantship. And so it's just about surrounding yourself with people who have great ideas and who can offer you kind of ideas for yourself and your own path, and also just trying things out. And if it's not the right fit, that's okay, but usually you're going to learn something about what you like or don't like, and that can help inform your next step.
I relate so much to that, Bethany. I was a philosophy major, by the way, when I was at Barnard, which was called, like the most impractical major in some ways. I don't regret it at all. I really enjoyed it. But, even during my undergrad years, I knew that while I enjoyed studying philosophy, I wasn't going to pursue a PhD in it or become a philosopher, if that's even a job. But I think what has really helped is kind of this flexible thinking. And like you're saying, Bethany, just kind of, instead of trying to plan exactly how your life might go, just taking what feels interesting in that moment. And, I've definitely had experiences where I thought something would work and it didn't quite match what I had expected, or, and on paper, when you look at like my profile and what I've done, it might seem like a straight line, but in actuality, it's kind of more of a zigzag. And the reason why I landed with this job in the nonprofit sector is kind of accidental. I used to work in the book publishing industry after grad school in New York. And we moved to Nashville because my husband wanted to pursue grad school at the time. I also felt like I wanted a change of location and try something new. So when he got into a school in Nashville, we decided to make the big move. And I didn't know anyone here. There was no book publishing industry really. And I stumbled upon this existing nonprofit that does writing classes. And so I just was able to, pitch myself as someone who could be valuable in that environment, even though 5 years prior to that, I would have never expected to even be in the South or be in that line of work. So I think it's important, if I could talk to myself when I was a Barnard student, like just to say, you probably won't really know what your life is going to be like 10 years down the line, and that's okay. So really appreciate what you said, Bethany, because it was it sparked a lot in what I went through.
So as I've already shared, I thought my career would go one way when I was at Barnard, and it went a completely different way. So I do definitely resonate with others. One of the things that did help when I was at Barnard was doing a summer internship my junior year with AT&T Bell Labs. So the Career Center had information on different internships, and I was like, okay, and they were for an industry group of researchers, it was like one of the freest environments I had ever encountered. I mean, even though they worked for AT&T, they could do, you had the person who wrote the C++ programming language. They weren't just doing projects tied to products for AT&T. They were doing things that impacted people nationally and internationally that had nothing to do with communications or what AT&T was doing. So I was really fascinated with that group of people. And they were all PhDs, and they just seemed to have so much fun. And I was like, okay, you can have fun doing this. And it was part of extra motivation for me to go to graduate school, doing that internship. And then I've already mentioned how in graduate school, attending seminars took me in a completely different direction. And then going to conferences, meeting people at conferences, presenting my own work, listening to other people's work, and then being open, so in academia, you're often asked to review journal articles, or you're asked to review grants, because I'm a researcher. And going to those grant meetings and panels and meeting other people, that's a different way to network. In fact, I've had opportunities to give talks and other things just based on that. So I'm not a particularly strategic networker, but things happen serendipitously when you open yourself up and are willing to sort of share your talent and expertise.
Thank you all. I love what's being said. I feel like the common thread is allow yourself flexibility, which is something we talk about really frequently here at Beyond Barnard as well. And Lola, what you said about sort of networking through collaboration, which I think is really fantastic and also translates across so many different roles and industries as well. Thank you for that. Okay, so a couple of you guys have touched on the details, but I'm curious to know, what does your day-to-day work look like?
I can start. So thankfully, with my position right now, even though it is based in Nashville and we have a classroom space, the team members, we have collectively decided it's okay to work remotely and to work from home. And actually, all but one or two of us are parents. I have two young kids who are 4 and 7 years old. And so, after I drop them off, I'm on my laptop at home or in a cafe. I'm getting emails out. I'm, scheduling meetings, doing Zooms. But then I also pick up the kids at 3. And then, sometimes just in those hours, they, play independently, or I might be with them a little bit and answering things on my phone as needed. And I'm just really grateful to be in an environment where there's an understanding that, I don't need to be completely online all the time. And I can still get the work done. And sometimes I have to leave the house in the evening for a literary event if an author's in town, or if I'm teaching a class myself or meeting somebody. But yeah, it kind of it's very flexible to come back to that word, which I think is something that I think nonprofit environments can allow a little bit more. And yeah, like next week, as I was saying to Ji-hyun before this panel started, it's spring break for the kids, which is wonderful for them, but also very busy for parents who have to work. So we're just kind of juggling like who's gonna watch them and who's gonna work during that time. So yeah, I think the question definitely will evolve, in your career, depending on your family structure and all that. But that's what it's like for me.
Okay, I'll go next. So my day-to-day schedule really varies. Right now, I work from home 3 days a week and go into the office 2 days a week, and that basically started because of the pandemic. And I found that to be we were completely remote, and I had never taught a whole course online before, and that was eye-opening. I still prefer in person, but um, it just opened up a lot of possibilities. But what I do on any given day depends on, so I'm primarily a researcher, but in the fall semester, I do teach a graduate informatics course. I have, student office hours, and I like those to be in person. So I try to, I just feel that there's some things that you can pick up nuances on body language, and other things that don't quite come across as well on Zoom or virtually. And so I like my student contact to be in person. And so I do a lot of, writing grants, writing papers, reviewing grants, reviewing papers. So on any given day, I could be doing any of those things. And then talking to faculty members. As a department chair, I have to basically help guide other faculty members who are looking to get promoted on, whether they're staying on track with grants and papers and all the things that they need to do to be able to sort of advance in front of a promotion committee. So yeah.
Okay. I also enjoy some remote work and variety, which we've been hearing a lot about. But for me, the variety piece has really been the important part. I've worked full time with classroom teaching. I've worked full time in an office, and now I am working. I'm the only New York City employee. I work remotely, but I also go out to schools and work directly with the teachers and students, which is a wonderful balance for me to have those in-person moments where you are getting the energy, you are getting direct understanding of what all the behind the scenes work is doing. But then I also do like that quiet at home time when I'm digging into our curriculum to look for areas that can be updated, or I'm emailing schools to get on board with our program, or collaborating with our team to plan for an event. So it's a really nice kind of ebb and flow of activities, and whether I'm behind a computer or out on the train going to a school, and again having the classroom experience where there is little flexibility in terms of your schedule. I know what a challenge that is, and so that's something that I'm always thinking about as I'm working with schools is how can I lighten the load of the teachers, or how can I provide them something that makes their work even more meaningful, because it is really a strain in terms of the schedule. But I also worked in schools that had really, really supportive environments, and helped me get through those days where you felt like, oh my goodness, I taught 3 classes in a row. I don't know when I'm going to go to the bathroom. And I'm really stressed about this parent I have to call and have a difficult conversation with. But when you have a great team and great leadership to support you, it makes it a lot easier.
I would say my day-to-day is a bit different as I am in person 5 days here at the museum. I think the nature of the work, particularly in learning engagement, is very collaborative. And so being here in person is like a big part of the role. And usually we collaborate on a lot of the work that we have for the week. As a fellow in the teen programs in particular, I do a lot of the administrative planning for upcoming programs. So everything from scheduling the spaces that are needed in the museum to booking the time of guest artists and teaching artists that lead our programs and that students get a chance to meet and interface with when they come to any event here. One of the more exciting parts of my role is social media management. So a lot of times marketing for teen programs is email, but we know that as teenagers, at least I didn't really check my email that much. So social media has proven to be a way that's a lot easier to reach out to our audience. So getting creative in terms of creating graphics, videos, and fun things on social media to get people to come to MoMA has been really exciting for me. And that's a lot of my day-to-day work in terms of the planning, but also we have public programs here. So I'm always at those, and those tend to vary based on what the activity is for the week. We have some weekly drop-in workshops that I'm at usually, and then there are monthly or summer programs that are run by a few of the team program and teaching staff here. So those vary, and it's a lot of planning on the fly and, getting to know the students and actually speaking to them, which as much as we're here for team programs, so much of my work is with adults. So it's exciting to get to actually meet the students that we're serving. So I think it varies a lot, especially when there's programs involved. But for the most part, doing all the admin and behind the scenes to make sure when the programs actually come, they run quite smoothly.
Beautiful. Thank you all. So for our students in the room, we're approaching our final couple questions. So, start preparing yours as well. You can start dropping them in the chat too. So for our panelists, what advice would you give to students who are interested in pursuing a career in education but are unsure of where to start? And you could speak more broadly, but if you can also speak to your current roles, like, as a researcher or in arts education, like all of those things, that would be great as well.
I'll go. I would say one of the most important things is to talk to people who are doing what you think you want to do. That can really help you decide if this is really for you. If nothing they're saying is resonating with you, it might not be, you might think it's what you want to do, but it might not be the right fit. So talking to a variety of people, learning from their experiences, and potentially, if possible, shadowing people, sometimes you can do that, as a student, just getting to see what a day in their life is like, and like, is this kind of, do I see myself doing this? Would I enjoy this kind of thing? And I'll just leave it really broad at that level.
Yeah, I would say those with interests in education broadly, if you have an idea of the discipline you're interested in teaching in, that might be a great place to reach out to people that are already existing in that field. I can speak to arts education in particular. I don't feel as though an art history background is absolutely required. I came from urban studies, which has a little bit of history, but a lot of things you can kind of learn like on the fly, which was like a relief for me to know coming in. But if you're interested in arts education, I'm definitely like a resource. So you're definitely welcome to reach out to me or look into internships, and I'm happy to like direct people as needed. But when it comes to arts education, I think the interest in the arts is the first step, and reaching out to like Lola mentioned, people who are already in the field to kind of get a feel for if that's your interest would be a great place to start. And then I'll just add on to that, looking at internships because that's also a great way to see if it's a good fit for you. Even just interviewing and learning more about the position is a great way to start.
Yeah, I think just like you all are already saying, exposing yourself to a variety of experiences. One thing I can say as someone who works in the writing education or the literary education world, I think there is perhaps a misconception from a layperson's perspective that in order to be a writer, you need to have an English degree, you need to, be writing every day, or you need to have something published. And I think the work that we're doing at the Porch, and I think a lot of other lit orgs, is that writing can also simply be an expressive art, and that you don't need to be writing in order to be published or to be a capital W writer. The act of writing can really be a healing experience for anybody, and even if you've never written a poem or never written a story or an essay in years, maybe the last time was when you were in college, that's okay. As long as you have experiences, you have stories, and it's just a matter of it is an act of vulnerability too, to put yourself in a writing workshop and to share things and to write down what's on your mind and to, revise it. That is a very raw thing to bring to the table, but that can also be so, I've seen firsthand in my own classrooms, but in others too, just how really fulfilling that can be, just as an experience, in itself. So anyway, I guess this is like my little pitch to anybody who has never taken a writing class. We're here at the Porch. There's also many in other cities, including New York, obviously. But yeah, I would just encourage you to like step out of your comfort zone every once in a while, because you never know what you might get out of that.
Well, I think the experience that all of the panelists bring here speaks to this, but I think I needed to tell myself this when I was kind of grappling with what I was going to do when I was at Barnard, is that, education is not just about classroom teaching, but of course, there's schools need so much, and students and teachers of all ages, right, need so much support in terms of curriculum and technology and budgetary support, and the list goes on and on. So there's so many ways that you can be part of education without being a classroom teacher. But on the other hand, I also want to say that if you have an interest in K through 12 education, I think it's really essential to get an understanding of what is happening in our schools, whether that means teaching for a while, or whether that means working on an after school program, working for a nonprofit, and getting, going on observations of classrooms, or even just tutoring an individual student, but talking to them, talking to their family about what their school experience is like. And that is just really going to add to whatever you end up doing in this field. There was no way for me to say when I was at Barnard that I wanted to do program management, but again, the variety of experiences and the variety of roles I took on helped lead me there. And so, I'll just say what everyone's been saying again: try as much as you can, and really get an idea for what excites you and what feels right.
Awesome. Before I ask sort of my final question, which I think a lot of panelists usually find to be like a much deeper question about, your own goals. So before I go into that, we do have a student question that I think all of our panelists, it would be helpful to get your perspective. So Ella is asking, what are the best ways, to decide between working in a classroom and doing hands-on work, or more behind the scenes work? And I'm actually going to copy and paste this question into the chat as well, so everyone can see it too, and you can jump in. And Ella, if you want to add some context to this question too, feel free to add as well.
I was just talking about like the differences between like working sort of like behind the scenes versus like if you're actually working as a teacher, and like how you found your footing like in that sort of field.
I can give a very quick answer as someone who's done both and is doing more of the behind scenes right now, but really started out as more of a classroom hands-on person. Is I think when I was just teaching and I had a really great relationship with the person who was essentially in my role now, who was managing all of the teachers. And she was someone who, very gratefully kind of was very transparent about what was going on behind the scenes and how her day to day was, or what the process was for hiring teachers or working with them. And I think that really helped when I stepped into this, to figure out that this is really something I enjoy doing. So I think maybe, other than the maybe obvious, just like try both and see what you like. I would say if there's any way you can find some sort of a mentor that you can shadow, or someone who will, show you a little bit of what does go on behind the curtain. I do think there are opportunities like that. I can't quite pinpoint, maybe others in the panel can, but that I think would be a good first step.
Yeah, and I think it's, of course, it's hard to get a full taste of something without doing it. And, classroom teaching is a fairly big commitment, at least in terms of here in New York City. If you have to have a master's, or if you're going into a fellowship program like Teach for America or Teaching Fellows, like there is a level of time commitment involved in that. Again, as much as you can get into classrooms now and, get a little vision of what it's like. But then I think another great way is, looking at nonprofit work that does work directly with schools. In New York City, there are just so many after school programs that are nonprofits that connect with schools, and you would be, teaching the same students who are in that school, but maybe in a shorter, after school period, or in an area that you're really passionate about. So that's one route that can help, build just your own knowledge of, does this feel right? Does this feel, you know, like the right fit? And then, again, I was a classroom teacher. And while I was doing that, I took on other roles at the school. I was a team leader, I was a department leader. And those helped give me a picture of what the management side was like and what it would be like to be more behind the scenes. So it's a lot to do multiple jobs at once, but it's also, whatever role you're in, as much different experiences as you can get out of it, is always beneficial.
Yeah, I totally agree with Bethany about the point of learning or getting some experience with nonprofit teaching. That's what I'm doing right now, and I think it's given me the best of both worlds in terms of the admin behind the scenes, curriculum planning, and then also like working directly with students. I'll also say if you're teaching at a nonprofit, one, the shorter time period is really great to ease you into the classroom environment, but also 9 times out of 10, the students that are coming are more interested in learning or in the topic at hand. They're kind of coming ideally on their own volition, or at least a parent who has an idea of what their interest is. So you will be dealing less with students who may not be having the best day at school or aren't in a particular interest in the subject you're teaching. Whereas working with a nonprofit that's maybe more targeted towards art or science or another focus, you can almost guarantee that the students coming in are art or science interested, which makes your role as an educator more exciting and can be more of an educational experience for you. In terms of just like looking at yourself though, and the difference between the two, I would say the student facing part of my role definitely calls more on me to be like an extrovert and like really puts in a lot of like my social skills, especially working with older students. You really have to have the energy to pull people out of their shell. So I think it's also about knowing who you are and what your interest is and what you want your day to day to be, because I think it's nice for me to have both, because there's not every day that I want to be jumping around and have super energetic and bring people out their shells. Sometimes it's nice to just, be behind the scenes a little bit. So I think also thinking about your day to day, what your personality is like, and if you're interested to grow in terms of like public speaking or work meeting new people, then maybe being student facing is more for you. But if you're more comfortable to be a little bit more behind the scenes in terms of personality as well, that's something to consider because it is a lot of energy.
So I
Thank
think
you
the
so
other
much.
panelists have covered this beautifully. I don't really have anything to add.
Thank you all. I agree. Really comprehensive responses, both looking at sort of the skill sets that are required within the job itself, but also sort of assessing yourself as well. Very, very important. Any other student questions? I know we have a smaller group today. If not, I would love to end our panel with a question that I like to sort of end all of our
I
career
think we
It
have
insights.
looks
one
like
student
Camilla
question.
has a
Oh, yes, please, please.
Hi everyone. Thank you for sharing all of your advice and insights. I appreciate it. I found it very eye-opening. I similarly to other what was said, so I'm majoring in education. And I feel often that like the idea of like what a teacher can do is like very kind of like limited or binary or like that it's only like in the classroom, like so I appreciated seeing so many different paths that kind of like are surrounding the world of education. And so I don't know if I have a specific question, just wanted to express appreciation, but I guess a question could be like, how do you, because like, I guess to give context, so I've been studying education at Barnard, and then outside of school, I've been working on like theatrical producing, but not in the education realm. So like working on like with Broadway producers and PR, advertising, like different things. And so I, I still haven't like found a way to like kind of mold the two together. So I don't know if there's any advice on like how to take like a more like how to take education and then like a more like kind of like pre-professional aspiration that's like more kind of like 9 to 5 um corporate, and then like how to kind of merge the two. I don't know if it's possible, but I wanted to hear. Yeah.
I would say it's definitely possible, and it's actually really great that you have multiple interests because I think regardless of each one, you're without realizing it, bringing what you're learning in education to producing and vice versa. I would really recommend, I think, mentioning like if you have a particular discipline that you're interested in teaching, and that's where like the nonprofit programs in the city really come in, because like this is similar to like why I'm like here in arts education is because my interest is in art as an artist or even like in the more commercial side of like sales. I'm interested in like the business side, the marketing side as well. So it was nice to be able to teach at a company that has that as a focus, like as a background, because it's kind of allows me to go either way. Like if I want to continue in education, I can. If I want to continue in art, I can. So I would advise something similar. And also looking into mentorship programs for the pre-professional interests and saying that you have the educational interests there and vice versa is also helpful. But I think keeping both interests is really, really great. And as long as you're being communicative about having the both, I think that a lot of the overlap can come really naturally. And then we are talking, I know I'm like kind of spokesperson now for like, oh, nonprofit teaching, but I think what's really helpful about it is that you have to do a lot of student outreach anyway. And that's a place where marketing and PR comes in because they're not naturally, they're not coming to school every day. You have to entice them to come into your program. So that's definitely a pathway that could be interesting. But yeah, I think having dual interests is really, really great.
I completely agree with what Irma said. And, even after you get your 9 to 5 job or whatever it is, it's not impossible to keep pursuing other interests at the same time. It's kind of about what you're able to give and what your, you know, schedule will allow. So, for one example, I play the viola as an happy amateur. I, played in the orchestra when I was at Barnard as well, and I wasn't good enough to get a degree in it or anything, but I really enjoy it. And after moving to Nashville, I found a community orchestra that I play with every once in a while. But behind the scenes, I also serve on their board. And I didn't even know that this kind of thing existed until stumbling upon it, to be honest. But a board is kind of like a social club at school. Like you have those clubs at Barnard. It's kind of the same thing with organizations. A lot of the nonprofits will have boards, and they're voluntary positions, but they can still be pretty meaningful and not as time consuming. And I help write their press releases and emails and kind of applying my writing skills to an organization that I really believe in because I really enjoy music. And so, like, it fulfills that passion while also exercising something that I think I'm good at professionally. And so I would say just keep your eyes open. Like, I'm sure there's other theaters wherever you end up, that will really love your help in whatever way. So, and for you to still be involved, like that can also give you that satisfaction at the end of the day.
Thank you.
So I just add, yeah, I'm definitely all for trying to do multiple things at once. So I'm a scientist and do mostly research, but I write creatively. And one of the things, to Yurina's point, there's all kinds of nonprofits in every city. So when I worked at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, I took writing workshops with Grub Street in Boston. There's writing workshops LA. And I kind of knew I wanted to also write, but I had grants and all these other commitments. And I just realized, okay, it'll take as long as it takes. So I published my first book in 2022, but it took 15 years to write because there were times, you know, I always felt guilty because I thought, oh, a writer has to, you have to work at it every day and you have a certain kind of path. And it took 15 years, and there were maybe 2 years where I didn't even touch the manuscript. So, so just finding a way, just not letting go of your interests and finding a way to make it work is really important.
I think it's good to hear the idea of like aspirations not having to be time bound. I think that's a very college thing to feel like we have to fit everything in like 4 years or whatever, So, I appreciate the insight that there is time, life is wide. Yeah, when you can there's different ways to do things we love, and yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Any other student questions? Okay, so I want to move into my final question before we close out. So for our panelists, what are your hopes for your career and your profession or your industry in general?
It's a big one, but for my career, I hope that whatever I'm doing, I'm, actively, if I'm in the education space, I want to be actively working to make something of value for schools, for teachers and students. And for the industry as a whole, I really hope that teaching becomes more valued, both in terms of the respect it's given and the money that's attached to it, and that those things can come without it becoming a white male dominated industry. And so, that's something that, I hope for. It feels a little bit distant right now, but then I surround myself with all these amazing people who are working in education, and I see that possibility as a reality.
For me, as a writer and someone who works in the writing world, I'm quite anxious about the effects of AI on our world, just in general, but also really with writing, because we do live in a time when, if somebody's goal was to sit down and write their autobiography, they could theoretically speak into a chat GPT and, it could produce a book for them in a second, if that's what they really want. And I think my hope, and this is something that I've believed in for years, even before AI became accessible, is that we can collectively value slow thinking and slow art making. To Lola's point, I'm also a very slow writer, even though I take years on my projects too. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Like, I think writing is kind of best when it's not rushed and when it is done deliberately and in a community like Grub Street, or other writing centers. And I hope that, and this might apply to other educators as well, but that learning, I think, and I really think it hits best and deeply when it's done over a slow simmer, over time. And I hope that we can, continue to harbor that idea instead of constantly just, reaching for the thing that's quick and easy, even if it's very appealing. And I think that's, if we can all kind of continue to believe in that, we can keep that spirit alive. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Okay, I'll go next. So just in terms of personal career goals, I've done a lot of the things that I wanted to do, having been promoted through the ranks from instructor all the way to full professor. So I'm going to focus more on what I would like for my field. So I'm a biomedical informatician. I do create AI as part of my work. And I teach students who are often going to medical school who are like, is this going to replace me? And, just kind of alarmed. And a lot of it is about the way, sort of the PR behind it and the way things are pitched. And I think AI is a tool like any other tool, and it's how you use it. So my wish is that more people learn how to create these kinds of tools to reduce the administrative drudgery that people face and free them up to be more creative. So it's not people getting pushed out of jobs. It's okay, that part that's not the part that you really enjoy, and it's, kind of a hassle. Let the AI take care of that. And then engage with people or do the things that are creative and make your field better, whether it's informatics. So in my case, it's healthcare. And there's a lot of ways in which computational tools can make doctors or nurses or physician assistants' lives better and give them more one-on-one time with their patients. Because that's what I want when I go to my doctor. I don't want them like typing forever on the screen. I want them to engage with me and listen to what I'm saying. So that's what I would hope for.
I can speak to my like personal goals first. I have a strong interest in fine art, and so I'm interested to go a little bit deeper into the field, more on the commercial side. So selling art, art dealing, and curating exhibitions independently. So doing independent shows, putting together group shows with artists I'm interested in and my own work. My research focus in undergrad was West African contemporary art, so I'd like to continue with that. I think we talked about Fulbright earlier. Applying for the Fulbright scholarship right now for study within Nigeria, and so it'd be exciting to be awarded that and to continue my research there. And then I think in the States, I would like to continue a little bit more on the commercial path, so maybe going back to school for business or something like that. So that's kind of like where my mind is right now. But I think in terms of my interest in what I want to see in the art world, I think a lot more, um, less um, fear in terms of taking risks when it comes to exhibitions. I think there's a lot of tried and true and really respected art organizations or like exhibiting institutions like MoMA, like the Met, all this stuff. And I think that we can take more chances in terms of the artists that we show. We don't always have to wait for an artist to get really, really famous for us to all admit that we like their work. And they don't have to always be from New York or from America either. So I'm really interested to see a growing like global exhibition culture, and also one that takes more chances on young contemporary artists, because that's some of my favorite work. And it sometimes feels like a shame that they have to wait so long to get the praise that they deserve. So that's what I'm looking forward to in the art world.
So beautifully said. All of these responses, really. I just want to thank our panelists again for joining us today, for taking the time to provide such thoughtful insight. For our panelists, you'll be hearing from me. I'll put everyone in one email so that contact information can be exchanged. And for our students in the room, we hope to see you at our next Career Insights event. Everyone have a great rest of the day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.